Hello everybody, in this video we will learn how to create interactive graphs using Bokeh. In this tutorial we will learn to create interactive charts of data stored in data frames using Bokeh. Bokeh is a library which has many functions to create a wide variety of interactive graphs. For the full manual, go to the website listed up here. In this tutorial, we will learn to create scatter and line graphs in two examples. In the first example, we will work with a simple, clean data set to create single line graphs and scatter plots. The second example shows a multi-line graphs using real-world data stored in a data frame in the long form. Before you can use Bokeh library, you have to install it in your Python programming environment. To do that, we will do the pip install command. But let's see first what we will be able to do at the end of this tutorial. So this is the plot of the data frame with the real world data. It's air quality data in New York. And I've plotted this with Bokeh. And at first it looks kind of the same what you would get with Seaborn. But the difference is this graph is interactive. So I can move the mouse over it and it will pop up some information of the data. Like when I go to this graph, it tells me which graph I got. That's from Manhattan. If you look to the legend on the right side, it gives me the date and the actual value. I can also hide individual lines if it gets too cluttered and I want to be able to read more better individual lines. I can also move the whole graph. And I can also zoom in. On the right side, I get a palette of functions. This is the default function, except for the hover function. I added this later. But a lot of this comes already right off the box, and I can zoom in with the mouse wheel for better readability of the graph. And I can also download a PNG file of the picture when I click this. And I can also, within my Python environment, save this graph as a standalone HTML file, which I can give to other people to read, or I can implement this into websites so that people can interact with my graph. So now I'll start installing Bokeh. Pip install Bokeh to get the functionality of the library. And next, I will work with a simple data frame. To do that, I need to start my program here. So let's clean this up a little bit, and I will start my tutorial here with importing pandas as PD. And now I write a very simple data frame with only 3 columns. I have my columns name, weight, and age. And these are the entries. And let's create a data frame of this. Data frame equal PD data frame with my data. And let's look at this. Display df. We run this cell, and this is what we will be working with in our first exercise, a very simple data frame. And now we are going to create a bar chart, a scatter plot, and a line graph displaying the data from that data frame using Bokeh. At first, we have to import the plotting functions from the Bokeh library. Then we call the plot functions to display the data. So let's start our program, and we import the Bokeh plotting function. Bokeh plotting import. We want the figure and we want the show command. And now we have to create the plot object. Create plot object. P is our object equal. It's the figure, and I give the height and width values. Height 300 pixel, and these are the parameters for it. The width 450, and I want to add a title. Example plot. Now I have to define the axis. P, the x-axis first. The label is weight. And the y-axis label H. And now we need the plot command. So P, and I start with scatter. So the x parameter tells the Bokeh function what I want to put on the x-axis. So this is the first part is only the label. I can write whatever I want. Here I have to define which values to put on the x-axis. The y equal h, and I need to give the source which data frame to use, and I use the one I defined above. That's the data source, df, and also I need a size, and we pick 10. And now we need to show that plot, the figure show P, because that's how I called our plot object. Let's execute this, and it automatically opens our picture on a new tab. So I will change that later, but this is already good. That's what I want. And this is the functions I get right out of the box. I can move it, and I can also zoom in and out. And I can download this as a PNG file. In order to display the graph right in our notebook, I have to add one function here. It's called output notebook. This way it's easier to work with this. And I also have to add this to the imported functions. Output book. Okay, now let's run this again, and this looks much better now. If I want a line graph instead of a scatter graph, I can just change the command here and enter line instead. And then I don't need the size parameter anymore. This gives me the size of the bullet points. Instead, I need to say the width of the lines. And now let's run this, and now I have the line graph, but it goes zigzag because it does follow those scatter points, how they are in this data frame. We will do a more complicated line graph later on, so we move on from here on. So instead of working with a simple one, we will be working with a more complicated data frame. And I already have a data frame stored in an external pickle file, which I load now. So I say my second data frame is equal to, it's a pandas command, panda read pickle, and I use pickle files because this way I load the data frame exactly as it is. There's no changing of variable types. For example, the date time stays datetime and is not converted to string if I would be working with a CSV file. So that's why I like working with pickle files if I stay within the Python environment. df2.pickle. This is how I load the data frame, and I will also display it to make sure it worked. And this is the data frame I will be working with. It is from the data.gov website, and I have downloaded the CSV file, but I've already cleaned it and stored it this way, that I have picked out a few places within New York City, and I picked out only 3 types of air pollutants: nitrogen dioxide, fine particles, and ozone. And I've stored those data from 2008 all the way to 2022 inside this data frame. And this is what I want to plot with Bokeh so that we get a graph like the one I showed you in the very beginning. So we need to sort this out a little bit more, because this is now all this together, all the different pollutants. I only want to keep the fine particles in this data frame I will be working with here. So I create a new one, name it df particle, and I will pick only the columns or the rows where the name, this is the name parameter, this column, where this will be equal to fine particles here. So I built a new data frame like so, and I want the name parameter equal to, and now I use copy and paste with the mouse, fine particles. Put this in here. So when this name is equal to this, only then it will be picked, and from those rows I built a new data frame, df particle. Let's display it. We run this. So now I sorted out only the data where the variable name is fine particles. I still have all the different areas in New York City. And now let's plot this into a Bokeh plot. So I have my first block here where I import all the functions. From Bokeh plotting, I import figure, show, and output notebook. And If I want to output it in the notebook, I need to add this output notebook, my first command. And now I define my plot figure. So now I just create the plot, and I'll make it a little bit nice. And I copy and paste it over here. So I have to define the width, the height, the title, and then the axis labels here in ppm for parts per million. And the x-axis type is datetime because that's what I have here. This is the datetime format for this. So this is my figure set up. And now let's plot this. Oh yeah, and this is a little bit more difficult because if we would be using Seaborn, then the U would be the geo place name. So I would have my 5 lines or 6 from the different areas in New York City, and each part here would get its own U, and I would get a line plot for it. But Bokeh doesn't have the U parameter, so it has to be a little bit, and I pick category 10. So now I can create my color palette. I call it palette. So this is what the U parameter would all do automatically, and we have to do it by hand. So the palette, and I create a list. So category 10, and I need 6 items, 6 colors. So that's a list of 6 colors because I do have 6 areas in my data frame. 6 areas, so I need 6 colors so that each area is plotted in one color. So here's my color list. And now I need a for loop where I iterate through my data frame, where I go from this variable name, geoplace name, one by one. I pick the first one, I get all the data. I go to the second one, all by data, and then I have to plot each individually. So this is the trickiest part of it. And I also copy and paste it over here, my for loop. So let's start looking at this command here first. So I have my particles data frame with everything in it, and I group it by the geoplace name. And that's step 1. When I group it by name, it gives me a tuple with the name and the data frame. This is what I will do. Now I use the zip command where I pair this already tuple with the name of the area and the data frame. This one now is combined with one palette element. So those are my 6 colors. So the zip command pairs one item from here with one item from that palette. So it pairs Willbrook with color 1, Brooklyn with color 2, Queens with color 3, and so on. That's what the zip does. And now with the for loop here, I will iterate through my data frame where I go area by area through this, and then I plot this. So here's my plot command, the one you know from before. I pick the x-axis, the y-axis. I label the source. So now this one here is defined here. So I get my tuple, the name of the area, and then the data frame is bundled here. So that's my source, is that group is the data frame. And then I need a label name for it. And this is name, which is this name here. So that's what the group by those are. The group by gives me the name of the area and the data frame. And this is what this is. And here, pick the line width. And then here is the color I want to plot this line with. And it says I pick my color. My color is also part of the for loop. This is where the grouped data frames are partnered up with one color in this palette. So it will, for each iteration, it will be then a different color for each different sub data frame. And this is it. Let's execute this. Now we enter the code to plot the multi-line graph. For each iteration we go through this for loop, we plot one sub data frame area by area, but we also need to show that plot. Show and let's see what we get. There it is. So without any extras on the graph, this is what comes out of it. So I cannot hide individual lines like what I've shown in the very beginning. I have to add this function. So out of the box, I only get the zoom functions here, which is already pretty good. And I can also save this in an external HTML file. So that's already a good functionality. But let's add the function that I can hide lines. So I copy and paste it over here. With this command, plot legend click policy equal hide. This is how I get the functionality that I can hide lines. Let's run this. And that's a very easy add-on to our graph and very nice already. So now comes the hover functionality, which is a little bit more tricky. So I want to add this functionality that I can hover on the lines and it will pull up the data for me. So then I have to import another functionality here from Bokeh models tools. I import the hover tool. And now I also have to define the tool tips. So what should pop up when I hover with the mouse over things? And this is, I create some space here for the tool tips. And this is what I want to see. I want to see the date. And so this is my labels here. Date, then I will pull up this timestamp column. Then the parts per million, that's basically my labels. Write whatever I want. It will pull the Y values, what's plotted, and the area label, it will pull up the geoplace name from the data frame. To create a hover object. Let's run this now. Not yet. Yeah, now I need to add this to our plot. So my plot object, and then there's a command add tools, and I want to add the hover object, which I defined here. Run, and now I have everything what I wanted. We save this graph now as a standalone HTML file. We have to add the export function to our imported block, and we add the output file function here, and also the save function. And now we add this command down here too. So we show the plot, and we also want to save the file, and that's why we imported the new command output file, and we just call the file name bokeh plot.html. And this is it. Now if we run this block, then it will also show it, but it will also write this in the same directory where this notebook is, this graph, as a HTML file.